There is a kind of guilt that lives in the body. It's not a thought, it's a weight in your chest, a knot in the pit of your stomach. It's the familiar tension in your shoulders before you've even consciously registered what you're feeling guilty about. It can be triggered by a silent phone, a conversation that ended too abruptly, or even just a quiet evening alone when you feel a sudden, sharp pang of responsibility for someone else's happiness. You find yourself mentally replaying conversations, searching for the exact moment you might have said the wrong thing. You draft apologies in your head for boundaries you haven't even set yet. This guilt isn't the clean, straightforward feeling that comes from having genuinely caused harm. This is a stickier, more pervasive sensation. It's the feeling that your peace comes at someone else's expense, that your silence is a form of punishment, that your needs are an unreasonable burden. And so, you break your own silence. You send the text message to check in. You apologize for being distant. You offer to help, to listen, to fix, even when you are running on empty. And for a moment, the tension eases. The knot in your stomach loosens. The dynamic is restored. But you are not. You are simply back in the cage, with the door locked once again from the inside. Sometimes, guilt is not proof that you did something wrong. Sometimes, it is the chain that keeps you available. It is the invisible fence of a role you have been conditioned to play for so long that you have mistaken it for your own identity. This is the core of the empath's trap, a dynamic that feels inescapable not because of the other person's power, but because of a deeply ingrained psychological mechanism within the empath themselves. It is a prison built with the bricks of your own best qualities, your kindness, your compassion, your willingness to understand. And the mortar holding it all together is guilt. To understand why this guilt has such a paralyzing hold, we have to look deeper than the surface of the relationship. We have to look into the architecture of the psyche itself. This is where the work of Carl Jung becomes not just insightful, but essential. Jung spoke of the persona, which is the mask we present to the world. It is our social identity, the role we play to be accepted, to function in society, and to be seen as good. For many who identify as empaths, the persona is that of the good person, the healer, the rescuer, or the understanding one. This persona is not necessarily fake. It is often built from a genuine capacity for empathy and a sincere desire to help. As a child, you may have been praised for being the easy one, the peacemaker in the family. You learned that your value, your safety, and the love you received were conditional upon your ability to manage the emotions of others. You became exquisitely attuned to the subtle shifts in atmosphere, learning to anticipate needs, soothe tempers, and absorb tension before it could erupt. Your persona became a survival strategy. You were the good daughter, the loyal friend, the supportive partner, and this role was rewarded. People called you kind, generous, selfless. Your identity became fused with this mask of unconditional giving. The problem is that a persona, by its very nature, is one-sided. It is an edited version of who you are. To be the good person 24/7, you have to suppress, deny, and disown all the parts of you that don't fit the role. Your own needs, your fatigue, your frustration, your righteous anger when you are mistreated, your desire for solitude, your right to say no simply because you don't want to do something, without needing a list of acceptable excuses. All of these perfectly normal, healthy human impulses become threats to the persona. They are pushed down into the darkness of the unconscious. And this is where Jung's second critical concept comes in, the shadow. The shadow is everything we are, but have chosen not to be. It is the repository of all the parts of ourselves we have deemed unacceptable, shameful, or bad. The shadow of the good person persona is not some monstrous evil. It is, paradoxically, often where our strength, our boundaries, and our authenticity reside. The shadow of the selfless giver is the part of you that wants to receive. The shadow of the eternal peacemaker is the part of you that is willing to confront conflict to protect your integrity. The shadow of the one who always understands is the part of you that has the right to say, "I don't understand, and it's not my job to." In a healthy life, we find ways to integrate this shadow. We learn to balance giving with receiving. We learn that we can be a kind person who also has firm boundaries. But when we are caught in a toxic or narcissistic dynamic, this integration is impossible. Why? Because these dynamics thrive on the persona and are terrified of the shadow. A manipulative pattern needs you to stay in your role as the inexhaustible source. It needs you to be the understanding one who absorbs blame, the patient one who waits, the forgiving one who overlooks repeated transgressions. Your persona is the perfect dance partner for their needs. The moment you try to express a need of your own, the moment you draw a line, you are not just breaking the rules of the relationship, you are threatening the stability of your own persona. And this is when the guilt mechanism is activated with full force. The other person may accuse you of being selfish, cold, or cruel. And because you have disowned these qualities in yourself, because you have relegated them to your shadow, you have no defense against the accusation. A part of you believes it. The guilt feels like confirmation that you are, in fact, becoming a bad person. This is the psychological masterstroke of the dynamic. The guilt you feel is not a message from your soul telling you you've erred. It is the cry of the persona, the ego identity that is terrified of dissolving. It's the voice of the conditioned child within you who learned that saying no meant risking abandonment or disapproval. The guilt is the leash, pulling you back into the familiar, predictable misery of the role you know how to play. Staying in the dynamic, however painful, feels safer than facing the terrifying unknown of who you might be without that mask. Think of it like this. You have been wearing a heavy, ornate mask for your entire life. It is beautifully crafted and has earned you praise, but it is suffocating you. The air is getting thin. You are exhausted from the weight of it. One day, you find the courage to lift the mask just an inch. The first breath of fresh, unfiltered air is shocking, but immediately a voice screams, "Put it back on. Who are you without this mask? You are nothing. You are ugly. You are selfish." That voice is the guilt. It's the fear of the unknown. And the person across from you, who has only ever known you with the mask, also panics. "What are you doing? Put it back on. I don't recognize you. You're scaring me. You've changed." Their panic validates your fear. And so, you lower the mask, and the familiar suffocation returns. It's painful, but it's a known pain. The guilt subsides because you have returned to your designated role. This cycle can repeat for years, even decades, leaving the empath in a state of chronic exhaustion, confusion, and a deep sense of self-betrayal that they can't quite name. It's a tiredness that sleep doesn't fix, because it's the soul that is tired. Tired of playing a part. Tired of carrying the emotional weight of two people. The first step toward freedom is not to fight the guilt. Fighting it gives it more power. The first step is to see it for what it is. A psychological signal, not a moral verdict. It is data. When you feel that familiar knot in your stomach, instead of immediately asking, "What did I do wrong?" you can learn to ask a different question. Ah, there is the guilt. What boundary did I just try to set? What need did I just try to honor? You begin to observe it with a gentle curiosity, as a scientist would observe a phenomenon. You are separating yourself, your conscious awareness, from the automatic, conditioned reaction. This is the beginning of what Jung called individuation. It is the process of becoming who you truly are, distinct from the collective expectations and the roles you've been assigned. It is the process of retrieving the valuable parts of yourself that were cast into the shadow. It is about realizing that your anger is not bad. It is a sacred signal that a boundary has been crossed. Your need for space is not selfish. It is essential for your well-being. Your refusal to be a dumping ground for someone else's negativity is not unkind. It is an act of profound self-respect. As you start to do this, something strange happens. The dynamic begins to change, not because you are trying to control the other person, but because you are no longer playing your part in the unconscious contract. When you stop explaining yourself, you take back your power. When you stop apologizing for your feelings, you validate your own reality. When you allow them to sit with the consequences of their own actions without rushing in to fix it, you are not punishing them. You are allowing them the dignity of their own journey, and you are reclaiming the energy you need for yours. This phase is often when the accusations escalate. They may call you cold, heartless, or narcissistic. This is projection. They are accusing you of the very things they fear, and they are trying to trigger your good person persona back into action. They are pushing the guilt button harder than ever because it's the only one that has ever worked. And this is your greatest test. Can you sit in the discomfort of their disapproval? Can you tolerate being seen as the bad guy in their story, knowing that you are finally becoming the hero of your own? The coldness they perceive is not cruelty. It is the quiet, still center you are building within yourself. It is the calm of a nervous system that is no longer in a constant state of high alert. It is the silence of a mind that is no longer rehearsing apologies. For the empath who has lived their life as an open emotional circuit, this newfound inner containment can feel like coldness from the inside too. But it is not the coldness of ice. It is the coolness of a deep well, a source of water that is now being used to nourish yourself first, before being offered to others. Integrating the shadow means you don't swing from being a doormat to being aggressive. That is simply another reaction. Integration is about finding the middle path. It's about becoming a person who can say, "I love you," and the answer is no. It's about being able to say, "I can see you are in pain, but I cannot carry it for you." It is the realization that true compassion includes compassion for yourself. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and for years you have been trying to quench the thirst of the world with a cup that was not only empty, but cracked. If this reflection is naming something you have felt, but have never been able to articulate, take a moment. Recognize that this deep exhaustion you feel is not a personal failure. It is the legitimate result of a psychological pattern that has run its course. It is the signal that the old mask no longer fits. The process of releasing this guilt is a journey of reclaiming lost territory within your own soul. You begin to befriend the parts of you that you once exiled. You listen to your fatigue and you honor it with rest. You listen to your resentment and you see it as a signpost pointing toward an unmet need or a crossed boundary. You learn to trust the wisdom of your body, which has been trying to tell you through that knot in your stomach and that weight in your chest that something was profoundly out of balance. The other person may or may not change. That is not the focus. The transformation that matters is your own. You stop being a supporting character in someone else's drama, and you become the protagonist of your own life. You learn that your worth is not contingent on your usefulness to others. Your worth is inherent. It exists whether you are giving, receiving, or simply being. Letting go of this kind of guilt feels like setting down a weight you didn't even realize you were carrying. At first, your arms feel strangely light, almost weak. You've become so accustomed to the strain that its absence is disorienting. But then, a new kind of strength grows in its place. It's not the brittle strength of a rigid persona, but the flexible, resilient strength of an integrated self. You become kinder, but your kindness is now wise. It is discerning. It knows where to give and where to preserve. You become more empathetic, but your empathy no longer drains you because it is contained within the strong vessel of your own self-respect. The guilt may still visit from time to time. It's an old, familiar ghost. But now, you know its name. You can see it for what it is, an echo from the past, a shadow of a role you no longer play. You can thank it for trying to protect you in the only way it knew how, and then you can let it pass by without letting it steer your life. You are no longer at its mercy. You are free. And this freedom is not loud or dramatic. It is quiet. It is calm. It is the profound peace of finally coming home to yourself. My kindness no longer requires self-betrayal. But this homecoming is not just a mental shift. It is a profound recalibration of your physical being. For years, your body has been a battlefield. It has stored the memory of every swallowed word, every forced smile, every time you overrode your own exhaustion to meet another's demand. This is the body memory layer of the trap. It's why, even when you have intellectually decided to change, your body may still flinch. You might feel a jolt of adrenaline when you see a text message from that person, your nervous system bracing for impact, preparing the old script of appeasement. You might hear a certain tone of voice on the phone and feel your shoulders instantly tighten, your posture collapsing inward as if to make yourself smaller, less of a target. This is the somatic echo of the persona. It is the physical memory of the role, a ghost in your own machine, trying to play a scene that has already ended. The work, then, extends beyond the mind. It is about teaching your body that it is safe now. When you hold a boundary and that familiar wave of guilt-induced panic rises in your chest, the practice is to stay with the physical sensation without reacting, to breathe into the tightness, to place a hand on your stomach and reassure that knotted part of you. We are not in danger. We are just choosing ourselves. You are actively rewiring your vagus nerve, teaching your nervous system that disapproval does not equal annihilation, that silence is not abandonment, that your peace is not a declaration of war. Slowly, a new physical vocabulary emerges. The absence of the chronic tension in your jaw reveals a jaw you didn't know you had. The deep, full breath that replaces the shallow, anxious panting feels like a luxury. You begin to notice that the exhaustion that plagued you wasn't just tiredness. It was the metabolic cost of constantly suppressing your own life force, your own shadow truths. And as you stop paying that cost, a new energy begins to circulate. It is the energy of your integrated self. This new energy will inevitably face a critical test. This is the stage of the bait. As the toxic dynamic starves from your lack of participation, the other person will often make a final, powerful bid to pull you back in. But this is rarely a direct confrontation. It is far more subtle and far more dangerous to your new resolve. The bait is often disguised as a moment of profound vulnerability from them. It might come as a late-night text. "I've been doing a lot of thinking. I realize how much I've hurt you. I'm in a really dark place, and you're the only one who ever truly saw me." Or it might be a sudden, manufactured crisis where they desperately need your specific help, your unique brand of understanding. This is not a hook for your anger. It is a hook for your highest virtue. It is aimed directly at the heart of the healer and rescuer persona. It whispers, "See, your compassion is needed. Your role is still essential. Abandoning them now would be cruel. It would prove you really have become selfish." This is the ultimate test of your integration. Your mind knows it's a pattern, but your heart, conditioned for rescue, lurches forward. The old you would have dived in head first, feeling a rush of purpose, relieved to be back in a familiar role, even a painful one. But the integrated you has learned to pause. You feel the pull, you honor it. You can say to yourself, I feel the desire to rescue. I see their pain, and my heart feels for them." You acknowledge the impulse from your persona without obeying it. And then, from the calm center you have been building, you respond differently. Perhaps you say, "I'm sorry to hear you're in a dark place. I genuinely hope you find the support you need." Notice the difference. It is compassionate. It is kind. But it does not offer you as the sacrifice. It does not nominate you as the solution. You are holding a compassionate boundary. You are wishing them well on their journey, from the safe harbor of your own. Passing this test, feeling the pull of the bait and not taking it, is a profound moment of graduation. It is the moment you know, in your bones, that the chain is truly broken. In the space that opens up after these chains fall away, you begin to notice the concrete signs of inner alignment. The first is a sense of spaciousness. Your mental landscape, once crowded with worry and strategic calculations about how to manage another's mood, is now quiet. It's an open field. At first, this spaciousness can feel like emptiness, which might be unsettling. But soon you realize it is potential. It is the canvas upon which you can finally paint your own life. Then, you notice the return of forgotten parts of yourself. The creative impulse you thought had died reawakens. You find yourself wanting to write, to play music, to walk in the woods, not as a means of escape, but for the sheer joy of it. The energy that was once siphoned off to maintain the toxic dynamic is now yours. It flows back into you, nourishing the seeds of your own authentic interests. Your inner world transforms. The harsh inner critic, whose voice was often a composite of past and present accusers, begins to lose its power. It is replaced by a more neutral, observant self-awareness, and eventually, by a voice of genuine self-compassion. You start to treat yourself with the same gentle understanding you once reserved exclusively for others. This is the real meaning of empathy. It becomes a complete circuit, flowing both outward and inward. Moments of spontaneous joy begin to bubble up, untethered to external validation. The simple act of drinking a cup of tea, feeling the warmth of the mug, becomes a moment of profound contentment. Your senses are no longer dulled by anxiety. They are alive, and the world appears more vibrant, more real. This journey of reclaiming yourself is not, ultimately, a selfish act. It is an act that ripples outward. As you learn to embody your wholeness, you give silent permission for others to do the same. You become a living example that kindness does not require self-abandonment, and that strength is not rigidity. The people who were drawn to your porous boundaries will naturally drift away, and in their place, you will attract relationships, friendships, and partnerships that are built on mutual respect, not on need and function. The ultimate peace you find is not a life devoid of problems, but the unwavering certainty that you now possess a reliable inner compass. It is the deep, cellular knowledge that whatever storms may come, you will not abandon yourself to the sea. You will be your own anchor. The goal was never to stop being a kind, loving, and empathetic person. The goal was to become a wise one. The goal was to build a vessel strong enough to hold the vastness of your own heart, so you could navigate the waters of life without taking on water and without sinking. You have come home, and the peace of this arrival is everything.